If you're watching this video right now on a Monday, June 22nd, I need you to pause for a moment before you continue. Do not turn it off. Do not skip. Do not go to the next one. Because what is going to happen in the next few minutes might completely change the way you go through not just this week, but perhaps the rest of your year. And I'm not saying this to keep you here with an empty promise. I'm saying this because there is something very specific happening to you at this exact moment. And this message was made to help you see what is right in front of you, but which you haven't been able to see yet. It is not the date that matters. It is not the numerology. It is not the calendar. It is not a secret code hidden in the numbers. What matters is that there are millions of things you could be doing at this very instant, and yet something inside you brought you here. Something made you stop scrolling. Something made you click exactly on this video, among so many others that appeared to you today. Something made you keep listening when, at any other time, you would have already given up. That, in itself, is already the first sign that this message is addressed to you, because the truth that few have the courage to tell is that no one opens a video like this by accident. You opened it because, even without admitting it out loud, there is a silent request living inside you for weeks, maybe months, maybe years. A request you almost gave up on making. A hope you kept deep in your chest because you were afraid of being disappointed again. And it is exactly about this hope that I need to talk to you today. I want you to listen carefully, because what I am going to say in the next few minutes might reorganize things within you that have been paralyzed for a long time. And I am not exaggerating. You did not arrive here because the algorithm is powerful. The algorithm is only the vehicle, the means by which the message reaches you. You arrived here because some part of you, that deep part that still believes even when everything screams the opposite, sent a signal. And that signal was heard. People have a habit of explaining everything through cold logic, through coincidence, through statistics, through probability. But there is a type of movement in life that completely escapes these explanations. It is when you think of someone and that person calls you the next minute. It is when you open a book to a random page and find exactly the sentence you needed to read that day. It is when a song plays on the radio, just as your heart was about to break. It is when a stranger says a seemingly casual sentence that answers a question you asked yourself that morning, in silence, without telling anyone. Today, that sentence, that music, that signal, is this video. And the fact that you stopped to listen to it precisely on this Monday, precisely at this moment in your life, is not a coincidence. It is an answer. Your silent prayer is being answered now. You just need to stop looking for the answer in the wrong place, in the wrong format, at the wrong time. Look, I know you have been feeling invisible to life. I know you have been thinking that God, the universe, life, whatever name you use, has forgotten your address. I know there are mornings when you wake up and the first thing you feel is not a desire to live the day, but a desire for the day to end quickly. And you do not tell this to anyone because you are ashamed, because on the outside your life seems to be working. You have a roof over your head, you have food in the fridge, you have people around you, and you feel ungrateful for being so tired even so. But the exhaustion I am talking about has nothing to do with what is materially missing. It has to do with the weariness of carrying a hope in silence for too long. It has to do with the weariness of continuing to believe after every disappointment. It has to do with that voice that whispers inside you every night before going to sleep, wondering if it is still worth asking, waiting, dreaming. I am going to tell you something that perhaps no one has told you yet this year. Your exhaustion is legitimate. It is not weakness. It is not a lack of faith. It is not proof that you are doing something wrong spiritually. It is the natural weight of someone who has been walking for a long time on a road without seeing a finish line. And this silent exhaustion that no one sees needs to be named, validated and cared for before any true transformation can happen. You wake up, brush your teeth, make coffee, go to work, answer messages, smile in meetings, send audio notes to friends saying everything is fine, eat lunch, go home, make dinner, wash the dishes, lie in bed, stare at the ceiling, and think, until when? Until when will I live like this? Until when will I ask, and it seem like no one hears? Until when will I have to pretend that I don't care, that my life is not what I dreamed it would be? And this question remains unanswered night after night. And little by little, You became accustomed to this lack of an answer. You normalized a pain that should not be normal. You created a mask so functional that even you forget, during the day, that you are wearing it. But the moment the bedroom light goes out, the mask falls. And it is in that moment, in that silence before sleep, that the truth comes. And the truth hurts. You are exhausted, not because your life is unbearable from the outside, but because there is a distance between what you are living and what you know you should be living. There is a dream inside you that still pulses, even if you try to muffle it. There is a direction that your soul recognizes as its own, but that your days are not following. And it is this distance that corrodes you. It is this distance that tires you. It is not a lack of gratitude. It is not a character flaw. It is not spiritual weakness. It is just the soul saying it did not come here for this, that you were not made to just survive. And until you listen to this internal voice with seriousness, the exhaustion will continue. But here is the good news. You heard it. Today, in this video, this Monday, June 22nd, you heard it. And hearing it is already the first movement. Let me tell you a story that might completely change the way you look at the time you think you have lost. There was a woman named Dolores Cannon. For decades, she lived a life that anyone would call ordinary, with nothing extraordinary about it. She was a wife, she was a mother, she took care of the house, she took care of the family. There was nothing in the first 40 years of her life that remotely indicated what was to come. She was not a child prodigy. She did not have great university degrees hanging on the wall. She had not published books up to that moment. She had no platform, no followers, no visibility whatsoever. She was, in every practical sense that the world usually measures, an absolutely invisible woman to the general public. And it was only after the age of 40, it was only when many people would have already given up on becoming someone, it was only when society's relentless clock already signaled that her time had passed, that everything began to move. She began to study regressive hypnosis almost by accident. She began to hold sessions with ordinary people. She began to record the stories she heard. She began to write. And what was just a personal curiosity, almost a pastime of someone who wanted to better understand their own consciousness, transformed over the following years into a body of work that touched millions of people all over the world. Dolores became one of the greatest references in her field, and she did all of that after that age when the world insists on saying, with silent cruelty, that it is already too late. I tell you this story for a very specific reason, and I need you to listen carefully. You probably think that you have lost your time, left behind, that other people your age are already further ahead, more fulfilled, happier, more settled, with more achievements, with more stories to tell. And this comparison corrodes you from within like an invisible rust, day after day, photo after photo scrolled through on your phone screen. But I want you to understand one thing that few have the courage to say out loud. Apparent delay does not mean abandonment. The fact that your life hasn't turned around yet does not mean it never will. There are cycles that are long by design. There are seasons that last longer than we would like, and often what seems like a wasted period is just the invisible preparation period that precedes a profound transformation. Dolores needed 40 years of ordinary life for everything that would come later to be able to happen. Those 40 years were not wasted. They were the soil where the later harvest could be born. And perhaps you are living your Dolores period right now, without realizing it, thinking you are standing still when in fact you are being formed. Here we reach a point that I need you to understand correctly, because most people fail exactly at this place. When people talk about a miracle, the image that comes to mind is always something spectacular and immediate. The sky opening up, a loud voice from above calling your name, an instant healing in the middle of a crowd, a radical and visible change overnight, with everyone around recognizing that something extraordinary has happened. And because the miracle we expect never arrives in exactly this Hollywood format, we conclude mistakenly that the miracle does not exist or that we are not worthy of it. But this is a fundamental error of interpretation. The true miracle rarely announces itself with trumpets. The true miracle sneaks in through the back door of your life and often spends years living inside before you notice it exists. It disguises itself as a casual encounter with someone in a grocery store line. It disguises itself as an unexpected message from someone you hadn't spoken to in a long time. It disguises itself as a door that slammed shut, that opportunity that seemed too perfect and that suddenly crumbled and left you in shock. It disguises itself as the detour you were forced to take because the original path didn't work out, that alternative route that seemed like a defeat and which, years later, you recognize as the best thing that could have happened to you. It disguises itself as the person who appeared in your life at the most unlikely moment, at that time when you weren't even looking for anyone. It disguises itself as that idea that came out of nowhere while you were taking a shower, washing the dishes, or driving to work. A miracle is silent movement. It is reorganization without fanfare. It is life leading you to where you need to be, even when the steps along the way seem random, frustrating, painful, or incomprehensible. And what I want to tell you with complete clarity this Monday, June 22nd, is that your miracle may already be in full motion at this very second. You just aren't seeing it because you're waiting for it to appear with lights, fanfare, and explanatory captions. That missed call you haven't returned yet could be a disguised miracle. That apparently unimportant conversation you had yesterday could be a disguised miracle. That unexpected meeting last week could be a disguised miracle. That rejection that hurt you last month might be protecting you from something you don't even know existed. Stop looking at the sky waiting for the grand sign. Start looking at your own day with attention and reverence, and you will begin to perceive that the fabric of your reality is being restitched at this very instant. You are just too distracted by the pain of waiting to notice the threads being woven in your favor. And starting today, I ask you for one simple thing. Start calling it a miracle what you used to call a coincidence. Start treating with gratitude what you once treated with indifference, and you will see how, in a few days, your perception of your own life changes completely. And now I need to talk about two words that have been so distorted in recent years that they have almost lost their original meaning: faith and gratitude. People confuse faith with denial. They think that having faith is pretending everything is fine when it isn't. They think that having faith is lying to yourself, smiling while bleeding inside, repeating empty affirmations in front of the mirror, trying to convince yourself of something you no longer believe in. That is not faith, that is spiritual posturing, that is theater, and your soul recognizes the difference immediately. True faith is not denying the pain. True faith is looking the pain in the face, acknowledging that it exists, feeling its weight, and yet continuing to take the next step without demanding proof that it will work out. Faith is stopping the demand for a written guarantee from heaven before continuing to believe. Faith is letting go of the control over what you cannot manipulate anyway. Faith is, at its core, a relaxation. It is stop pushing the river. It is stop trying to force results within deadlines you invented in your head. When you have true faith, you don't stop acting. You don't become passive. On the contrary, you act with more lightness because you stop carrying the weight of having to control the entire universe. You do your part with care and release the rest, and this surrender is what opens space for the movement to happen. Because while your hands are clenched, holding tightly to your own expectations, there is no room for anything new. Life can only deliver when your hands are open, and gratitude is the internal state that keeps your hands open. True gratitude is not a technique to get more things. It is not a mental trick to accelerate manifestations. It is not a mystical formula to force abundance. True gratitude is a state of fullness that reduces the sense of lack. When you are truly grateful for what you have, even if it seems like little, you stop living in the frequency of scarcity. And when you leave the frequency of scarcity, strange things begin to happen. The opportunities that were there all along, but which you couldn't see because you were obsessed with what was missing, start to appear with clarity. The right people begin to draw near. The right ideas begin to sprout. Not because the universe rewarded you for being grateful, but because your perception changed. And when perception changes, reality changes. Furthermore, gratitude allows you to see purpose in the difficult chapters. That relationship that ended and that you swore was unfair, over time reveals itself to have been a protection. That job you lost and which seemed like the end of the world over time reveals itself to have been a door to something greater. That illness which scared you and forced you to stop everything over time reveals itself to have been the sign you needed to finally take care of yourself. Nothing you have experienced was in vain. Nothing. Every tear shed, every sleepless night, every disappointment swallowed, all of this has a place in the invisible architecture that is building your next phase. And gratitude is the key that allows you to see this architecture, even before it is finished. I need to talk now about something you might be avoiding thinking about, but which needs to be said with care. The pain of absence. The pain of those who have departed. The pain of phases that have ended. The pain of old versions of yourself that you had to leave behind. There is a silent melancholy that lives in those who have lost someone they loved, in those who have seen an important cycle come to an end, in those who look at old photos and barely recognize the person they were back then. And this melancholy, if not named, becomes a permanent weight on your back. You walk through life with this weight and no longer even notice that it is there. But it is. I want to tell you something that might sound strange, but which is deeply true. Nothing that was truly yours is ever completely lost. True connections do not vanish. They change form. The love of someone who has departed does not die with the person. It remains in another density, in another dimension, on another plane that our rational logic has difficulty processing, but that the heart recognizes. You are not alone. Whoever loved you continues to love you, even if they can no longer physically embrace you. Whoever prayed for you continues to pray, even if from another place. And that old version of yourself, that child you once were, that young person full of dreams who seemed to have gotten lost along the way, has not died either. They are alive within you, waiting for you to listen to them again. The chapters of your life that have ended were not erased. They became part of the soil from which you grow today. Everything you have lived is in some way alive within you, and what seems like a definitive break is, most of the time, just a change of form. The love continues, the direction continues, the meaning continues. You just need to stop demanding that everything remain exactly as it was in order to recognize what is being preserved in other ways. And that realization, alone, has the power to lift a huge weight off your shoulders. Because you stop carrying grief where you don't need to carry grief. You stop suffering over losses as if they were absolute, when in reality they are transformations. And from the moment you understand this, a new peace begins to settle within you, a peace that no longer depends on external circumstances to exist. Now, the most important moment of this video has arrived, and I need you to pay full attention to what comes next, because this is where theory turns into practice. I'm going to give you a simple 5-step ritual for this Monday, June 22nd. It is not magic. It is not numerology. It is not a secret formula. It is a conscious practice that will mark your day and create internal space for everything we have discussed so far to begin moving in your reality. First step, quiet yourself. At some point today, give yourself 5 minutes of absolute silence. Turn off your phone, close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths, feeling the air entering slowly through your nose and leaving slowly through your mouth. Do not try to empty your mind, because the mind never empties completely. Just observe your thoughts passing like clouds, without attaching yourself to any of them. This moment of pause is the soil where everything else will happen. Without this pause, the rest of the ritual will not work. Second step, name honestly what you need. Do not beat around the bush. Do not use flowery words. Do not keep asking for vague things like happiness or peace without specifying anything. Look inside yourself and ask, what do I really need at this moment in my life? It could be emotional healing. It could be a job opportunity. It could be the courage to make a decision. It could be the end of a cycle that you know needs to end. It could be the arrival of a new person. Be specific, be honest, be brave. The clearer the request, the clearer the direction of the movement becomes. Third step, feel as if you have already received it. This is the most subtle and powerful part. After naming what you need, stop for a few more seconds and try to feel, in your body, how you would feel if that had already happened. What sensation would that be? Relief, joy, tranquility, confidence? Let that sensation wash over you, even if just for 30 seconds. This anticipated feeling is what tunes you to the frequency of what you have asked for. Fourth step, give thanks before the evidence. Here is the leap that few manage to take. Instead of thanking only after something happens, give thanks right now before any external sign appears. Say in a low voice or in your thoughts, "Thank you for what is coming. Thank you for what is already in motion, even if I cannot see it yet. Thank you for the care that is being woven in my favor." This advanced gratitude is no trick. It is an act of faith materialized in words. Fifth step, repeat throughout the day, whenever you remember, a single phrase, "Something is already moving in my favor." When you are in the car, at work, in the shower, in line at the bank, something is already moving in my favor. This phrase will gradually replace the scratched record of negative thoughts that was playing inside you. And in a few days, you will feel a real difference in your internal state. This Monday, June 22nd, becomes special not because of the date itself, but because you decided, in the midst of it, to interrupt the automatic. You decided to stop living on the autopilot of exhaustion and start living with presence. You decided to make room for faith, for gratitude, for hope. You decided to act like someone who has already begun to receive what they asked for. And this decision, however small it may seem, has the power to redirect entire chapters of your story. You do not need external proof to begin. Start with the decision. Start with the ritual. Start with the advanced gratitude. And trust that life always finds a way to respond to those who are willing to listen. Today is your day to listen. Today is your day to receive. Today is your day to start over in silence, without needing to tell anyone. Because what is planted in the invisible at the right moment always blooms in the visible. And your right moment is now.